Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Confident Conversations. I'm Dr. Rees, a purpose and confidence scientist, and your new favorite confidence coach. I'm not going to hold you. I was super nervous coming into this. Why? Because this is my first live and I've never done this before. But the reason why I've never done it is the topic of today's conversation: nerves and fear becomes a barrier. So let me break it down for you. I've always wanted to be somebody who's gone live on YouTube so that way I could coach and leverage live as a tool to be able to reach more people. But there was something about showing up to a space and knowing potentially nobody would be there. And that freaks me out. And so, because I knew that this is something I wanted to do, but I also listened to my body and heard where this fear was coming from, I felt where the fear was coming from. It allowed me to do some more internal research, insert self awareness. And that self awareness took me back on a self discovery journey of abandonment, of people not showing up, of doing something, putting effort into it, and not yielding the results that I wanted. But because I'm ambitious and because this is something I desire and the desire has never gone away, I have to also listen to that too. And so, what we're talking about today is how do we not allow fear to be a barrier to getting the things that we want to get out of life? Like, how do we not allow fear to continue to stop us? So, how do we become free with fear instead of free from fear? Because in my research, I've learned that fear is a part of our human experience. And the thing that sucks about that is people will say fear is the enemy, but fear can't be the enemy because fear is a part of us and I'm not the enemy of me. I'm on my team. I compete with me, but I'm on my team. And if we can shift our mindset from thinking that fear is the enemy to making fear a friend, I believe that'll allow us to be able to live out a purpose with confidence. But what we have to do is we have to acknowledge where is that fear coming from. So with me wanting to go live, I understood that I had a desire for it. Thinking about actually doing it made me feel nervous. And so I would make plans, I would study, I would learn all the how to's. And today I decided no more how to's, just do's. That was it. No more how to's, only just do's. And this is me taking the leap. This is me betting on myself. This is me addressing and embracing the fear to just do the thing I've always wanted to do with nobody present. And the dopest thing about nobody being here is I've gotten up reps on reps on reps with nobody in the gym. It's really my favorite time to hoop is to get in the gym and to get better with the shooting machine, and there's nobody there and you just got music and you're just getting up shots and you work on your handles and you're doing your thing and nobody's there. And then when the lights come on, when it's showtime, you're able to see who was really in the gym putting in work. And this is how I have to frame going live. Not even just going live. This is how I see everything that I do, whether it's going live, whether it's making a video, whether it's writing, anything that I do, I see it through the lens of it being a rep. So I want to encourage you. The first challenge and the first encouragement is to see everything that you do that's in alignment with who you are created to be, see it as a rep. Now, what is a rep? Repetition. Coming from the hoop world, like without reps, you will not be your best, period. And you can always tell, oh, they lacked reps, because the more reps you have in certain situations allows you to be better in other situations, right? Because you've repped this thing, whatever that thing is, so much, once you get into gameplay, you can tell, ooh, they know what to do, how to do. And that separates really cats from who are good to great or have a desire to be good, but still are subpar to those who are like excelling and excellent. And I have a standard for my life of excellence. And when I think about what does it require, not even just when I think about what it requires to become excellent, but also what are the actual rules to excellence, you cannot get past reps. So my question to you, my challenge to you, my encouragement to you is what are the reps look like for you that you need to get in order to become the person you're created to be? Now, that's broad umbrella, so let's break it down. For me, it's going live. For me, it's making videos. It's writing. It's doing all the things that allow me to expand and grow as a coach, a speaker, an author, all of that. So I want you to think about, what is your realm? What is your world? What is the niche, for lack of better words, that you operate in, that you can pinpoint and say, here is an area that I can get more reps in so that way I can get better. And as you think about that, I want you to think, is there an area that I've been avoiding because fear has created a barrier? Because that's the thing that fear does. Fear can create a barrier for us. So we may know this is where I need to get the reps in. And because I know this is where I need to get the reps in, you feel that initial piece of fear or nerves or discomfort. And then after so long, it builds up a callus. And I think a lot of us, I'll speak for myself as well, is that we've had the same barriers in place, the same fear in place for so long that it built up a callous wall. And now we won't even be able to feel the good feels of that desire because the fear has outperformed. And so this is why we have to become friends with fear, is because we have to be able to say, you know what? Nerves mean it matters. Nerves mean that this thing, nerves literally means that this thing means something to me. And the reason why nerves mean that something means something to you is because it gives a signal to your body that you care. Nerves mean you care. Nerves mean you want to do good. And if you don't want to do good in something, that is a signal that you don't care about it. So as you're thinking about, how do I discover my purpose? How do I grow in my personal confidence, my self confidence, my craft confidence? How do I get better at doing these specific things that my job or task or craft or career requires of me? Is there a piece of nerve? And you may be thinking, oh, is there ever a time that you're not nervous? No. Because when you always want to be great, when you have a desire to be excellent, nerves will always exist. And this is why I need you to become friends with fear, because nerves are attached to fear. But when you know that these nerves are not a bad thing, that fear is not the enemy, it will allow you to be able to develop and use the skills to say, cool, I feel fear. That's okay. I'm experiencing nerves. That's okay. That means this matters to me. This means I care about this thing. And so now I'm going to be able to do this thing, but I'm also going to develop the mindset that allows me to leverage that and turn it into excitement and see it as a challenge and an opportunity. So that's the thought process. I was nervous to come in here. I was nervous to get started. I was nervous to figure out, how do I create this new form of content? How do I show up here in a natural space when I'm talking to me and the camera and nobody's in here? But I knew one thing, that I had the desire, and that if I didn't show up, I won't be able to encourage anybody else to show up. So I'm saying that to you is, who is it that needs you? Or sorry, let me say it this way. There's somebody in the world that needs you to show up so we can encourage them to show up. I'm gonna say that again. There's somebody in the world that needs you to show up so it can encourage them to show up. I'll think about it like this. Bad Bunny did the Super Bowl last weekend on Sunday, as of right now, of this recording. And when I went on IG, there were so many, or TikTok, there were so many people from Black and Brown communities who were just elated and were crying to see him take over the halftime show and do it all in Spanish. And you had grown adults who were crying because they've never seen themselves be represented in such a beautiful light on a stage. And what that points to is representation. And representation will always matter regardless of your age, because we need to see folks who look like us in some way, shape, or form doing things, even if you have no desire to perform at a Super Bowl. Still seeing somebody who is similar to you, who is overcome, who is performing at the top of the top, who is facing adversity and still excelling, that does something to your brain. And I want you to think about this before I point us to the science piece of that. Is there was a part in Bad Bunny's performance where he gave his Grammy to a little boy. Two things. One, outside of it being an amazingly beautiful moment of this little boy being able to see an older gentleman who, again, that representation, but also it develops something called self efficacy. Now, my mission is to always come to the table with some type of culture in science because it matters, right? I always want to blend the two. And so, what happens in that moment is self efficacy is developed in that little boy's brain. And the reason why it's so dope for it to have been like a younger boy is because now that little boy gets to grow up thinking, oh, what's up from here on out? There should be no doubt. Yes, there will be doubt in his mind, but he is seeing a representation of what it looks like for somebody who looks like him to tell him, you got this, you can do this. I am a role model for you in this way. So, if you're not familiar with what self efficacy is the belief in our ability to pursue, to be able to grow, to persevere, to advance through difficulties. The reason why that matters is because there's an aspect of it, or the reason why it connects to what I'm talking about is there's an aspect of self efficacy that's called vicarious experience. And it is my favorite thing to talk about when it comes to self efficacy because that vicarious experience is connection to representation. So we always talk about, in a negative light, we always talk about parents living vicariously through their kids. But I think we need to start flipping that narrative and becoming parents whose kids want to live vicariously through them. This is what I mean. When you can model confidence for your kids and you can be a confident human being, that is going to instill self efficacy into their brain because you're modeling that thing. And so, what that means is your kid can now look up to you and say, oh, yeah, my parent persevered. My parent works hard. My parent doesn't give up. My parent is confident. They do hard things. They expand their comfort zone. And so now your kid is getting this message of this is how we persevere. This is how we leverage our resilience. This is how we grow. This is how we expand our comfort zone to do uncomfortable things in order to become the person we were created to be. So now your kid is vicariously living through you and developing self-efficacy in their brain. So when they encounter a challenge, they're like, oh, this is how we do it. I understand there's challenges. I understand there's difficulties. I understand that those things will pop up, but I've seen the forces and the people around me, the parents around me, the village around me pursue through difficulties. And so their brain tells them I can too, because they vicariously live through you. So instead of us thinking about how do we stop the narrative of parents vicariously living through their children in a deficit, negative, destructive way, let's change that to kids constructively living vicariously through their parents and being able to build up. And that's what we're on a mission to do as parents, is how do we model that thing? And so to go to this next piece is a reminder that there's somebody out there who needs you to show up to encourage them to show up, because you're not for everybody, but you are for somebody. And that's the message that I have to tell myself is I'm not for everybody. I had to make peace with that joint. I'm not for everybody, but I am for somebody. And by me being willing to show up, the somebodies that I'm for will also be encouraged to show up. Period. So I have some notes. I have some things that I want to go through. This is a live. So I have some stuff that I want to drop in here. And I want to talk a little bit more about fear. And fear is something, again, like I said, fear is it's got a negative connotation because of the hold that it has put on us in our lives. And when we continue to hold up the narrative that fear is the enemy, it prevents us from becoming friends with fear. Because think about it. If I see something as an enemy, depending on, right, if you think about the art of war and all that stuff, it might be like, oh yeah, keep your friends closer, your enemies closer. That's not how I do life. But it prevents me from being able to really get to know and understand this thing and bring it closer to me. So When we think about fear, I want you to think about fear like this. Growing up, my mom always told me that I was not born with the spirit of fear. And it wasn't until recently through my research that I've been able to really dissect that much more. Like, okay, what is fear? What's at the root of fear? Why is fear necessary? What role in does it play in our life? What role does it play when it comes to confidence? And so, if I know that I wasn't born with the spirit of fear, then how come people become full of fear? So, okay, so if we're not born with the spirit of fear, then how come people become fearful to where they develop a spirit of fear? And I think that's because fear is psychological and fear is a part of us. But fear wasn't meant to take over our spirit. It's just something that was meant to be psychological. I hope that makes sense. Like, if we're not born with the spirit of fear, but fear is a part of our human experience because it's psychological, if you allow fear to take over you and you become fearful, now you've become full of fear to where that psychological aspect of fear has now become spiritual. And now you're unable to move in your purpose because you have become full of fear. Well, you were only supposed to have fear from a psychological stance. And having fear from a psychological stance is not a bad thing. And the reason why it's not a bad thing is because we need fear. So we need fear in order to let us know when there's danger. We need fear to let us know when we're not safe. We need fear to give us an alarm of when there's a threat. We need fear. Fear is not the enemy because we need fear, which is why fear is psychological and not spiritual. So if I understand that fear is psychological and not spiritual, or not supposed to be spiritual, it's supposed to be psychological, if I then start to see everything that I'm doing, if I start to see opportunities as fears, I have now made fear or taken fear from being psychological to being spiritual, because now it's impacting my ability to live out my purpose with confidence. And your purpose and your confidence is I think is a part of your spiritual being. It's a part of your soul. It's a part of who we are. And so when your fear impacts your purpose, fear then starts to develop in your spirit. And here's a connected piece that just came up for me. Fear, when fear is supposed to just be psychological, but it becomes spiritual, the spiritual aspect impacts our energy, and our energy impacts the way that we move. And so if you're full of fear and this impacts your movement, that is because the psychological aspects of fear flowed down into the rest of your body. And so we got to stop that. We have to change that. Like, I'm on a mission, and I'm a tool. I am a tool. I am literally going to continue to show up to the things that make me feel fear. I have to, because I can't, I will, this is my new ceiling. This is my new barrier that I have to be able to get up and get on, because I know what it feels like to not do something that I desire to do because fear is telling me not to. And I have to be the model of what it looks like to embrace fear, not just grow in confidence, but then to embrace the next level of it, to show other people how to do the same thing. And so we can have two different responses when it comes to fear: destructive and constructive. The destructive response to fear sends us on a destructive spiral, from anxiety to worry, and spiraling into inaction or analysis paralysis and all of that. The constructive response to fear is something where, if we're able to get to that first action, get to hope. My mission for you is to get to hope. And the reason why hope on the opposite side of anxiety, when it comes to the constructive and destructive responses for fear, is because hope is the key. Hope is also a psychological feeling that we can experience alongside fear. So when I have this constructive response to fear, it's allowing me to see fear through the lens of challenge, not as a threat. I hope that makes sense, because I know I'm saying a lot, but the mission and the thought process here is that We understand that we can have two different responses when it comes to fear. We can have a destructive response that's rooted in seeing fear as a threat, or we can have a constructive response that's rooted in seeing fear through the lens of challenge. And we see lens through the lens of challenge, or when we see fear through the lens of challenge, this enables us to get to hope. Now, why is hope so important? Hope is important because hope is a psychological form of capital, which influences our well being. So let me give you an example. Back to the kid with Bad Bunny. Let's say he's out on the field, has that experience, he's practicing, he's around Bad Bunny and all the other different people doing the amazing things. They're dancing, they're practicing, they're moving, because I'm sure he didn't just pop up that day. Like, he had to practice being there and receiving the trophy. Now, that kid's hope for his future skyrockets because what he sees is literally on top of the world, quote unquote, right? Like, he literally sees all that is possible. Hope is hard because hope is a belief for what we desire to see. The reason why fear and hope need to go hand in hand is because you initially have a hope, and for some of us, it gets snuffed out by fear. A lot of us, let me say it this way. When we're kids, we today we went to it's our son's birthday as of today recording, and we had lunch with him at his school. And as I'm sitting in the classroom, I'm seeing all these kids run around and do their thing. I start to get emotional. And I'm like, yo, I hope that all of these kids keep that childlike spirit and energy. But I also know that in the third grade, that this joint is tough and that they start to become cognizant of so many other things that's going on in the world. And as I'm watching them move around and play and all these different things, my hope is attached to my desires. But I know that as they get older, it's fear is going to start knocking at that door. And the reason why I use that as an example is because when we're kids, we all have hope. We are filled with hope and expectations and desires. But if you fast forward from a 9-year-old third grader to a 18-year-old senior, or heck, even a 16-year-old sophomore, or a 25-year-old who just graduated college, or a 35-year-old, as you fast forward and you look at all the adults now in the world, we have a hopelessness epidemic going on. So what happened? How did we go from third graders who are filled with hope to adults who live in a hopeless world? That's the question. That's what I want to fix. So when I'm sitting in this classroom, I'm like, yo, I don't want these kids to grow up in a hopeless world. But I also don't want us adults to live in a hopeless world. So we have to fix that. We have to be the answer. We have to be the solution, which is why I knew that I had to show up here today, and I had to keep showing up because somebody needs to be challenged and encouraged. It's my job to challenge you. It's your job to change you. And I can only influence change in you. Want to do that? Join me. So this goes back to the point of, as parents, adults, community members, village members, whatever it is, we need to no longer have the idea of vicariously living through, and not saying not all parents do, but again, that's the notion. We need to change the narrative of adults vicariously living through kids, but kids being able to have the privilege to vicariously live through adults. That joint is a privilege because there's a whole lot of adults out there who kids can't look up to. So they're vicariously living through all these people that they can't even see. And that is a problem. So now let's break this down a little bit further. They're living vicariously through people on social media, just everyday people who became influencers on social media. They're living vicariously through professional athletes, artists, entertainers, all this stuff, people they may never even meet, because folks who are influencers or famous or stars and all that in the world are showing them a life of potentially what's possible. But for a lot of them, I don't want to say it's unattainable, but it's there's a disconnect. It's a really big gap. It's a really big gap between any kid who scrolls on social media and somebody famous. You may never actually meet this person. And so, if the only people that encourage you and motivate you and push you and challenge you and support you and love on you are folks that you'll never meet, that's a problem. Every single person deserves to be supported and know that they are cared for and mattered. And they deserve to have somebody in their life who they can look up to and be like, man, okay, their resilience has become my resilience. Their confidence has become my confidence. Their self efficacy has helped me grow in self efficacy because they're being a role model. So, adults, I'm calling on you, I'm challenging us that we have to be better for each other and for these youth and young adults out here. Because the only people that they have to look up to are cats that are so unattainable. It makes another trick go off in their brain because they know that they're like, oh, man, I'm never going to meet that person, but that's the only role model they have. And so we got to do better. So let me get to this next piece. Because I gotta go. Here I am, 26 minutes into my first live. Let's get it. Um, I want to say this. In order for you to develop the confidence that you deserve to have, you have to get out of the learning cycle of cognitive learning and get into the experiential knowledge phase. No more cycles of how to's. You got to get into the realm of just do's. That's what I want you to take from this. Because if we're going to address our fear, if we're going to be able to expand our comfort zones and to get better into growing our craft, we have to get out of learning. Because I know you're learning. I know you're on YouTube. I know you're on, TikTok. I know you've got all the things saved. I know you've read all the books. I know you've got the experience, but that imposter syndrome is keep you in a loop. And so what happens, and let me break down the science of this really quick. The only way that we're able to develop self-efficacy and confidence is if we actually do the thing. So the nerves that I had starting this an hour ago are now, they decrease. You can tell I got a little bit more natural with it. I'm still learning how to do it, still trying to learn how to get comfortable, seeing the camera where it's at and how I want to look at my notes. And because this is a completely different form of content creation than I've done in the past, I've got to find my flow. But my chest ain't beating as hard as it was before. My palms aren't sweaty because I've done the thing. And I look forward to day 30. I look forward to live 100. And I look forward to being able to look back at that very first one where and I stopped the camera. That one's unpublished. 5 minutes in, I was like, oh man. But we're here and we're comfy. And I want that for you. Yours may not be going live on YouTube, but yours is something. And I know that yours is something because I know that you have a purpose. And I know that your purpose is connected to a gift. And I know that gift is connected to making some profit in a craft. And if you're going to be excellent, then you have to be able to put in the reps. So no more how to's. We're focusing on just do's. So I want you to identify what is one thing in your craft that you know has become a barrier for you, but you haven't been able to get over that barrier because fear is the barrier. And we need to become friends with fear so we can get free with fear, because fear is a part of our humanity. Fear is something that helps keep us safe. But we have to be able to recognize when my brain is responding to fear to something that is an opportunity I'm supposed to perceive as a challenge. Big difference. Betting on yourself because you are the bag is a key to living out your purpose with confidence. But if I see opportunities as a threat to my livelihood, then I'll never be able to become the person I was created to be because my lens is off. So I need you to fix your lens so that way you can start to perceive opportunities that were made for you through the lens of challenge with hope and optimism. If you can keep that childlike hope and optimism, your life will drastically improve. But if you don't allow yourself to see opportunities and challenges through the lens of hope and optimism, and you only see them as threats that increase your anxiety, then you will stay stuck in a spiral. That imposter syndrome will continue to do whatever it is that it's doing to you right now. So you have to physically experience the thing. Visualizing, if so, here's your step. This is what I want you to do. Number one, I need you to identify where is an area that I want to grow and get better in, but I haven't, or what is something I want to do, but I haven't because of fear. I want you to acknowledge the fear, write that joint down. And then in that, so write down the thing, write down the fear. And then the next thing I want you to do is I want you to visualize yourself actually doing the thing, whatever that is. Sit down, 5 minutes, 1 minute, visualize yourself doing the thing because your brain can't tell the difference between real life and what you're thinking and what you're seeing. So what you're doing is you're priming your brain to see you doing it. This is one way that we're going to increase the hope. Then I need you to go do it. Now, for me, it was easy. I'm sitting at my computer. I had the thought and I was like, I'm going live right now. And I set my stuff up and I went. Fear, breathing heavy. That was it for me. But for you, sure, it may take longer. But there's something that you can do to help you grow in whatever area it is. So I need you to take immediate action. Do it with your heart pounding, do it sweaty, go somewhere, knock out that thing, whatever it may be. And when you do, I want you to let me know. So I want you to comment on this regardless of when you see this live. Comment on it and say, here's the thing that I was afraid of. Here's the area I want to grow in. And this is what I did. I want to know that you did something about it. I want you to get out of the cycle of how to's and get into the movement of just do's. So here's the next piece of our confident conversations is we are going to do an ask me anything. I get questions all the time, every day in multiple different ways. So I figured that this was going to be the best avenue that I could answer those questions. So if, again, you're ever in a live, make sure you check out the next one. Drop me a question, send me a comment, send me a DM, any of those things. I want to make sure I get your questions answered. So I have a couple questions that I want to get responses to. So the first question is, I feel like I don't know who I am anymore. What do I do? Okay. So I got this question this week. I feel like I don't know who I am anymore. What do I do? So if you're somebody who feels like you're going through life and you have no idea who you are anymore, there's two things that pop into my mind. This leads me to identity. It leads me to self-awareness. It makes me think about how much time are you actually spending with you to feel like you got to a space of like, I don't know who I am anymore. It sounds like there was a lot of life that was being lived and you were able to finally pause and go, okay, cool. Was I living life in a way that was not in alignment with who I was created to be? And now you're able to stop and think about that. Were you making decisions that didn't align with your morals or values or habits for so long that you woke up and you're like, yo, I don't I don't know who this person is that I'm looking in the mirror. I get it. I've been there. I've done that. And the fact that you have the self-awareness to be able to acknowledge, I don't know who I am anymore, and the courage to want to do something about it, I applaud you. So here's what I would do. I want you to know, or here's what I'll say is I want you to know that you're not alone, that I get this question all the time. And this week I was listening to Issa Rae on Emma Grand's podcast, and she mentioned being in a weird season of life. Now, this is an amazing, accomplished woman who has transformed and has provided a whole lot of amazing content, and her career has skyrocketed. And she mentioned, I'm in a weird spot. And so I bring that up because you may feel like this again at some point. Not knowing who you are is normal, it's natural, and it's not something that you should beat yourself up about because it is a part of the human experience where you may be successful and succeed for a long time or make a lot of actions or life gets so busy, you're doing all these things, and all of a sudden you're like starting to question yourself. Okay, ask the questions, sit with it. So, my advice, my coaching advice is to tell you to spend some deep time with you. You deserve 1%. Spend 5 minutes with you every day. I don't feel like me. Why? Well, because of this. Cool. Why? And you just go on a deep, wide trail of why don't I feel like me? But then I need you to be able to figure out what is me? Who is me? What did feeling like me, or what does feeling like me feel like? Or do I need to feel like something else? Do I feel like I've been being somebody else? And so I want you to ask yourself those questions is, what does it feel like to be me? When's the last time I felt like me? And what is the me that I want to feel like? And to know, regardless of how much you've succeeded or how much you've done and how much you've accomplished, having these thoughts is normal. So give yourself compassion. And with that compassion, give yourself space to be able to ask those questions. And know that as long as you continue on this journey, there will be moments of self doubt. But what you're doing is equipping yourself with the tools to be able to say, okay, all right, and check yourself. Am I heading in the right direction? What are my decisions and my energy and my movements being influenced by? That's how we continue to grow in emotional confidence, is being able to have that conversation with ourselves. The next question is um let's go with this one. How do I stay motivated when progress is slow? So somebody asked me, how do I stay motivated when progress is slow? This is what I would say. Motivation often gets confused with being a feeling that's supposed to be permanent. But what motivation is a decision. We have to decide to stay committed and disciplined. And when we take action, motivation has the ability to then create other endorphins, dopamine, oxytocin, and all that stuff when we follow through on the decision that we made. And so, motivation isn't a high, yeah, rah, rah type of feeling. Motivation is that follow up. Motivation is what we get from taking action. And so, if you feel like, how do I stay motivated? I would reframe that to, what do I do to continue to follow through to get to motivation? Does that make sense? Like, what do I need to do in order to still show up? And my answer is, you just show up. And that's it. You show up regardless of how you feel, because if you're seeking to feel motivated, you're seeking the wrong thing, because motivation doesn't come until you're in action, the same way that confidence doesn't come until after you've done the thing. And so, really, we're talking about discipline and consistency and commitment. And those three things matter when you do the thing despite how you feel. So, this is one reason why I don't call myself a motivational speaker, is because motivation is not a feeling that I can inflict on you. I see myself more as, in a segment like this, a coach and encouraging. I'm going to encourage you to do the thing, but not motivate, because motivation has an actual science behind it that needs multiple different things. And in order for us to be able to have that sense of motivation, we have to make sure that whatever it is that we're doing is rooted in internal satisfaction. And so, if you feel like, how do I stay motivated when progress is slow? Then I would also ask you, are you seeking fast progress, overnight progress? Because what's wrong with slow progress? And it's easy for society to make us feel like things have to go fast. I want it to happen overnight. But slow progress is better than no progress. So that's what I would say to that person, is, how do I stay motivated when progress is slow? You don't try to stay motivated. You keep being disciplined, you stay committed, you be consistent, and then motivation will meet you in the middle and confidence will meet you at the end. And then you get to remind yourself that, okay, boom, last time I showed up when I didn't feel like it, I still enjoyed the experience. And then I got the endorphins, the oxytocin, and that motivation met me in the middle to keep seeing it through. And then that confidence built on the other side of that. And then I'd also say, you know what? Sometimes it may not show up. Why? Because that's a part of the journey. And that's what's going to create that separation for you, is that piece right there. So I appreciate y'all for showing up and tuning in to my very first live Confident Conversations with Dr. Rees. And I'm going to be fully transparent. I'm 40 minutes in and not one person is tapped in right now. But that does not mean that in the future that this video will not get some traction. But if I don't show up, I can't encourage anybody else to show up. So thank y'all for being here. I believe in you. I love you. Until next time. Peace.